For decades, Canadians living near the border made weekend trips south a beloved tradition. Cheap gas, Target runs, buffalo wings, and a taste of Americana were all part of a friendly cross-border ritual. These trips weren't just about shopping, they were about connection, adventure, and a sense of shared community between neighbors. Families would pile into their cars, passports in hand, ready for a day of deals and treats just across the line. But in the spring of 2025, that tradition came to an abrupt and unexpected halt. The roads to the US emptied, not because of snowstorms, holidays, or even a new pandemic, but because of a quiet, powerful, nationwide protest that swept across Canada. Canadians, in a rare show of unity, decided to keep their shopping dollars at home, supporting local businesses and sending a message that couldn't be ignored. This wasn't just a handful of people changing their weekend plans, it was a seismic shift in behavior, felt in border towns and big cities alike. A February poll revealed that 56% of Canadians were canceling or actively avoiding trips to the US, a number that stunned both governments and businesses on both sides of the border. The message was clear and impossible to miss. If you don't act like a good neighbor, we'll spend our weekends, and our money, elsewhere. Social media buzzed with hashtags like #BuyCanadian and #BorderBoycott, amplifying the movement. Even the International Peace Garden, a living symbol of unity and friendship, saw its Canadian side go eerily quiet, a stark and poignant sign of the new divide that had opened up. What triggered this sudden freeze? It wasn't just one event, but a perfect storm of political drama and economic tension as 2025 began. Headlines blared about tariffs, trade disputes, and diplomatic spats. The catalyst, a familiar face, returned to the White House, bringing with him talk of bigger walls, steeper tariffs, and wild new ideas about North American borders. The tone from Washington was unmistakable, and Canadians took notice. Suddenly, the friendly weekend shopping trip became the first casualty in a trade war that no Canadian wanted. But everyone was now a part of, whether they liked it or not. The cross-border friendship, once so easy and natural, was about to be tested like never before. Old routines were broken, and new lines were drawn, and it all started with empty parking lots, silent protests, and a quiet resolve that would echo far beyond the border itself. Oh, what happened? How did a long-standing partnership between neighbors suddenly spiral into chaos? Donald Trump returned to the Oval Office with a new perspective. He now saw Canada less as a trusted ally and more as a source of untapped revenue, a piggy bank waiting to be cracked open. He threatened crippling tariffs on Canadian goods, and in a moment that would echo across the border, he made an offhand remark about annexing Canada as the 51st state of the Union. For Canadians, this wasn't just a joke or political theater, it was a direct insult to their national identity, a blow to their pride and sovereignty. Then, on March 4, 2025, the US imposed a sweeping 25% tariff on nearly all Canadian and Mexican goods, sending shockwaves through the economies of both countries. This wasn't a targeted measure. It hit everything from steel and lumber to car parts and agricultural products, disrupting entire industries overnight. The move was meant to force Canada and Mexico to make concessions at the negotiating table, but instead, it backfired spectacularly. The combination of economic threat and political insult sparked not just anger, but a new sense of unity and resolve across Canada. People from all walks of life felt compelled to respond. Suddenly, this wasn't just a trade dispute, it was personal. The relationship between the two countries had changed, perhaps forever. Canadians decided to fight back, not with protests in the streets, but with their wallets, choosing to support local businesses and avoid American products wherever possible. The boycott began almost overnight, and suddenly, the rules of the economic game had changed. American brands vanished from shelves as Canadians rallied together. The US had misjudged its neighbors' resolve, underestimating the power of Canadian unity and the backlash that would follow. And as the first signs of economic fallout appeared, it became clear that this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. Canada's response was swift and grassroots. Ordinary people led the charge, not politicians. Buy Canadian became the new national mantra on social media, in stores everywhere. A poll showed 81% of Canadians were buying more Canadian-made goods. This wasn't about saving money, it was about sending a message. National pride soared, with 85% saying they felt prouder to be Canadian than the year before. People shared lists of Canadian companies, celebrated local farmers, and rediscovered homegrown brands. The boycott started with canceled trips and empty carts in US border towns, but quickly spread to every Canadian home. Canadians scrutinized every label. Oranges from Florida, wine from California, ketchup from Pittsburgh. Was there a Canadian version? More often than not, the answer was yes. With every purchase, Canadians redrew the economic map, one grocery list at a time. The trade war had become a movement. The supermarket became ground zero for the boycott. Canadian grocery chains like Sobeys and Metro leaned in, promoting homegrown products with big maple leaf signs. Entire sections were dedicated to Product of Canada. Online, campaigns like #ProudlyCanadian showcased local farmers and food producers. US products were pushed to the back or quietly dropped. Canada responded with its own 25% tariffs on American goods, a $107 billion counterpunch. Suddenly, American ketchup and orange juice cost more, while Canadian alternatives took center stage. Shoppers paid attention to labels like never before, choosing Ontario peaches over Georgia, PEI potatoes over Idaho. It became a point of pride to fill your basket with Canadian goods. The boycott wasn't just political, it was about community. Canadians were voting with their wallets, reshaping their shopping habits aisle by aisle. The grocery store had become a symbol of national unity. Grocery stores were the front line, liquor stores were the shock troops. The battle over bottles wasn't just about what people drank, it was about national identity, pride, and the power of a single policy to shake up daily life. In every Canadian city, the news spread like wildfire. American liquor was about to vanish. Canada's provincial liquor boards acted fast. American liquor was pulled from shelves almost overnight. Store managers scrambled to comply, and by morning entire sections were bare where bourbon and Tennessee whiskey once stood. The LCBO, one of the world's largest alcohol buyers, halted all new U.S. purchases, devastating for American distilleries, especially Kentucky bourbon. For decades, these distilleries had relied on Canadian sales to keep their barrels rolling and their workers busy. Ontario Premier Doug Ford summed it up: "They're done, they're gone." His words echoed across the border, signaling a new era of hardball politics. No negotiation, no delay, a clean break. The shelves were cleared with ruthless efficiency, leaving customers stunned and store owners scrambling for alternatives. The Distilled Spirits Council warned this could vaporize 31,000 American jobs. From bottling lines to shipping docks, livelihoods hung in the balance. Kentucky alone lost a $76 million export market in a flash. The ripple effects hit small towns and big brands alike, with barrels piling up and orders drying out. Decades-long relationships vanished with a single press release. What took years to build was undone in hours, leaving both sides reeling. For Canadian drinkers, it meant switching from Jack Daniel's to Crown Royal, and local craft distilleries finally got their moment. Shelves once dominated by American brands now showcased homegrown spirits, and curious customers discovered new favorites. Canadian producers scrambled to meet demand as American brands disappeared. Distilleries ramped up production, hired new staff, and seized the opportunity to shine. The liquor pull-off was a potent message. Even a bottle of bourbon could become a weapon in this trade war. It was a reminder that trade disputes aren't just fought in boardrooms, but in the aisles of everyday life. The shelves told the story: Canadian spirits rising, American bottles gone. The new landscape was unmistakable, and shoppers couldn't help but notice the change. The impact was immediate, and the shockwaves spread fast. News outlets buzzed, and social media lit up with photos of empty shelves and frustrated bourbon fans. For U.S. distilleries, it was a brutal lesson in the cost of political games. The stakes were suddenly real, and the losses impossible to ignore. For Canadians, it was a toast to homegrown pride. Bars and homes alike celebrated the surge in local spirits, finding unity in a glass. The trade war had reached happy hour, and every pour told a story of rivalry, resilience, and a new chapter in North American drinking culture. South of the border, the impact was immediate and painful. American businesses and workers, especially in agriculture, felt the sting as Canada, its largest export market, closed its doors. Small businesses like New York's Burlap and Barrel lost Canadian partners overnight. Border towns in New York, Washington, and Maine saw empty restaurants, vacant hotels, and shuttered shops. The tariffs, meant to help American workers, instead put their jobs at risk, especially in manufacturing, logistics, and retail. All this hit as U.S. inflation was already rising, making goods even more expensive. The policy designed to make America stronger was causing economic anxiety on both sides. The real casualties were the workers and small businesses caught in the crossfire. In Canada, the mood was a mix of anxiety and pride. A trade war with your biggest partner is scary. 86% of Canadians worried about worsening economic conditions. Over half delayed major purchases, bracing for tough times. The economy is deeply tied to the US, and everyone knew there'd be pain at home. Yet national pride surged. 85% felt prouder to be Canadian. The country stood together, refusing to be pushed around. It wasn't just about tariffs, it was about dignity. Canadians felt united, even as they worried about the future. The trade war became a defining moment for Canadian identity. The US-Canada border, once the world's longest undefended, now felt like a wall. Decades of trust and easy cooperation were suddenly strained. The 51st state comment left a deep scar, making Canadians question their neighbors' respect. Economic ties unraveled as businesses on both sides sought new partners. Supply chains rerouted, and some changes could become permanent. The friendship wasn't dead, but it was in critical condition. The easy flow of goods and ideas was replaced by friction and suspicion. New walls, tariffs, boycotts, wounded pride had gone up. It would take years to tear them down. Oh, what's the lesson? Relationships matter, especially between neighbors. The US-Canada bond was like a good marriage, but 2025 proved even the quietest partner has a breaking point. Canada's response showed patriotism can be an economic force. The Buy Canadian movement was a spontaneous uprising, not a government order. For the US, it's a wake-up call. Aggressive policies have real-world costs, not just in dollars but in lost friendships. The empty stores in border towns are proof. The future depends on restoring respect and trust. Tariffs can be lifted, but healing will take much longer. Canada is prouder and more independent. The US has learned it can't bully its friends. The relationship will never be quite the same. And it all started with a forgotten rule of friendship.